All right, Anthony Gatt back here. We're going to answer some more boxing questions. All right, let's go with number one. All right, Travis View 1. Hey, brother, thanks for doing this. Running/road work, how many miles and how often for big guys? All right, so Travis, UFC veteran, I think over 100 MMA fights. It's a bad man right there. It's a good question, too. Okay, so why we need high levels of conditioning? I actually did a pretty extensive video on YouTube for this, so I'll make sure I post that in the bio. But suffice to say, we do need a high level of conditioning, a high level of aerobic conditioning to reach a high level of boxing conditioning. All right, but it needs to be balanced out by a couple of other considerations. Number one, you only have so much time and energy that you can devote to training. So do you really want to spend 30 or 40% of your training time going on long runs? Probably not a great return on your dollar. Also, I mean, going out there constantly doing those long, slow runs preferentially forces adaptation in the slower type 1 fibers at the expense of the type 2 fibers. So it makes you slower. A lot of long distance running will make you slower and weaker. But, circle back around to the fact that we do need a high level of aerobic conditioning. So how do we reconcile that? Well, the answer is it's going to vary, okay, depending on where you are in the training cycle. If you are in between fights, you don't have anything on the schedule, or if you're fairly early on in a longer training camp and you want to improve that aerobic conditioning, that's the time to do it. So that might be, 4 or 5 days a week out on the road, depending on where you are starting off. So if you're in presumably, like Travis, a high level of baseline conditioning, maybe you go out there and you want to improve the aerobic capacity, maybe you go out there in between your fights, 4 days a week, maybe 2 half-hour runs. I like to go by time as opposed to distance. A couple of half-hour runs, maybe a 20 or 25-minute run at a fast pace. Maybe like a 20 or 25-minute run at a fast pace, maybe like a 30 to 40-minute runs, just to kind of build up that capacity. And then maybe one long run where you go out there over an hour. Easy Sunday morning run, just kind of get the miles in. Now, as we get closer to a fight, we have to start replacing some of that longer distance, slower work with some of the high-speed conditioning work. All right, so, and that might be as simple as replacing a couple of those running days with some fartlek training, where you go out there and you jog, but intersperse that with some sprinting. So the easiest example is go out in the track, sprint the straightaways, jog the turns, all right? It kind of allows you to work that aerobic capacity, how to learn how to shut it down, get back to baseline and still work that aerobic work. Or high intensity interval training, something like that. Whenever I was at my highest level of conditioning, however, this is kind of for you guys that might be a little bit newer to the sport. Whenever I was at my highest level of conditioning, it wasn't because I was out there putting a lot of road miles in. It wasn't because of any kind of, CrossFit type activity where it's a high intensity interval training. It wasn't the amount of rounds I was putting on a bag or the jump rope. It was because I was getting high quality sparring. High quality sparring is irreplaceable for developing your highest level of conditioning. All right, and I'm not talking going out there, all right, let's kind of go a little easy, let's work on some things. I'm talking like banging it out, hard rounds. All right, 3-4 days a week, week after week. That'll get you at your highest level of conditioning, but it's going to beat you up. Now, during those times when I was kind of, stretching those weeks together where you were getting good sparring week after week, I used to get up like maybe 3 days a week in the morning and run and, go out there for an easy half hour. And I always felt better. It has an amazing restorative capability. Now, I would also, go out there and do like a high intensity interval training and then maybe a track repeat sprint day on another day. But those, longer runs, I always felt like shit starting out, and I felt better finishing. It's a great way to kind of get the good stuff in, get the bad stuff out. So that's another reason you want to put that in. It's got good recuperative benefits. Great question. All right, so what's next? Ben Ward, question, what's the best way to train at home with no equipment? All right, so Ben, I answered this last week, the Q&A number 3. I think it was the first question. You'll want to look at that. There's certainly plenty you can do to work out from home with no equipment. Next one, USP 357. My question is, I sometimes end up throwing hooks to the head with my palm facing down, but my hooks to the body beer mug style, presumably thumb up. Perhaps only because I'm 5'7" and trying to get reach on taller guys. Any suggestions? All right, so okay, so I always did beer mug style. I actually like that term, beer mug style. It felt better for me. At the end of the day, your power isn't going to be determined by how you hold your wrist. All right, it's going to be determined by how hard you kick your hip, how hard you kick your shoulder. The wrist, you're just transferring that body's power into the target. So squeeze the fist, get the elbow behind it, pick your arm up, go behind it. All right, you don't have to turn your punch over. All right, turning your punch over, you know, getting that back behind it, that shoulder behind it, and that arm behind it is more than just turning the wrist. All right, so you can turn a fist over just by by throwing it with a thumb up form. So whatever you prefer, whatever feels comfortable. That's kind of my answer for that. The other part of this question, I'm only 5'7" and trying to get a reach on taller guys. All right, so I don't know if that was a question, but I'm going to address that. The biggest problem that I see with people that are smaller trying to fight a bigger guy is they try to fight big. All right, if you're a small guy, don't try to fight big, fight small. Use your small size to your advantage. I mean, look, if I'm fighting a smaller or a taller guy and I got to punch up, I'm pretty well protected here. All right, I'm pretty well protected behind my punch. Meanwhile, the bigger guy's got to punch down. He's much more open up. Stay tight, stay fast, stay small. Let that guy open up and then take advantage of that. All right, don't try to be big, be small. Another question at DM. What is a good guard or hand position to show a beginner? I've seen a few different varieties, front of the cheekbones, off the shoulders. All right, it's an interesting question. I don't really usually get that question, but I like that question. All right, so the goal of having your hands up is to protect yourself, right? You don't really need your hands up here to punch somebody. I got my hands down here, get those punches in just fine. It's to protect. It's to get in the way of somebody else's punch from hitting my face. All right? If I'm down here, if I'm holding my fist down here, I got to go all the way up to cover my face. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? For the same reason, I wouldn't hold my hands out here. I wouldn't hold my hands out here. I wouldn't hold my hands out here. Keep them where they got to go. Look, somebody punching your face has to travel about, 3 feet from their chin to your face? If my hand is here, all I gotta travel is maybe 1 inch. I squeeze it, I make sure I'm behind it, and I got it. There's no way, I don't care how big, how fast, how scary a guy's punch is, that all of this should get to my face before this. All right, before that. I should win that battle every time. It's just a matter of staying composed, having your hands in an initial correct position, and then finishing by fitting that punch. A couple other things. Don't go across. Don't block punches across your nose, all right? The right hand is for the right side of your face, left hand is for the left side of your face. If I tried to catch somebody's right hand with my right hand, I'm open for the left hook. If I try to catch somebody's left hand with my left hand, I'm open for the straight right. So until you get this down, just protecting each side of your face, don't try with that trickery. I mean, there's some good moves you can do off of that, but first get the basics down. Again, I'm right here. I cover almost my whole face, just moving a couple inches. All right, one last thing. So my answer would be, hedge your bets. Keep it here. Don't have the elbows flare out, right? Don't get lazy and have your elbows flare out, because all your elbows are getting in front of here is air, right? I don't care if anybody punches here, that's not gonna hit me. Keep those elbows in front of your body. Keep those fists in front of your face. There's one other point I wanted to make. Oh, okay, so the other thing is, don't put your hands asleep. Don't put them to sleep right here. Don't think you're safe if you're, covering your chin, or even if you're right here and your hands are asleep. Because the first thing you got to do if you want to block a punch is wake them up. You got to wake them up, then you got to block the punch. Keep them awake. Have them ready to be blocking, ready to be punching out. Those things should already be awake, should already have movement just about to go with them, okay? So that's a good question too. We'll shut it down and get you guys next time. See you.